Ebenholz has had one hell of an arc in this game, and I'm not just talking about his story. On release, he was kind of just seen as a boss killer that struggled against most bosses, giving him the dubious reputation of being the worst 6-star in the game. Then, Vigil released, taking some of the heat off of him, and then he got his Delta mod, helping to improve his image a bit more. But he's still in a weird spot. He has something of a cult following, and the people who use him love him. But the community at large still doesn't really seem to get him, seeing him as a fringe off-meta pick, and when he does come up, it's usually just as the butt of a joke. And look at my channel. Obviously I'm biased, but I get where the haters are coming from. I only started using him because I had to for my niche, and right up to getting him I was joking that I'd be the only person pulling on his rerun banner. So, as a former hater/doubter, let me share why people use him and why I've come around to seeing him as a meta tier unit. Eben's kit is about damage. He's a mystic caster, meaning he stores his attacks when there aren't any enemies for him to target, and his talent 1 gives him more damage with those stored charges, while also giving him a bonus charge that he can save for elites and bosses. His talent 2, meanwhile, gives him extra damage against isolated enemies. His Delta mod, and that's the one you're going to want to get by the way, makes all of his attacks apply necrosis while changing his talent 2 to give an even bigger boost and gives him bonus elemental damage to enemies affected by necrosis. These are good. I mean, I don't think I need to tell you that more damage is good, and at this point I think it's well known that elemental damage is pretty strong. But elemental damage aside, the first talent is generally the more relevant one to how you play him. Managing his charges is just really easy to do and gives a huge return, especially since his skill 3 multiplies the damage bonus further. Though with his Delta mod he's strong enough that outside of like really high difficulty content, it rarely matters if you're off on that. Meanwhile, the isolated enemy thing for his second talent either comes on its own from enemy pathing or just doesn't usually matter if you're playing him the way I'm going to suggest. His first skill is mostly a forgettable default Mystic Caster S1. Some people who are even more Eben-pilled than I am have found uses for it, and I'm sure they'll be judging me for my Eben only being M6, but if you're just getting started with him, skip masteries on this until you have a plan for them. His second skill is a lot more interesting, but it's still mostly a fringe pick. It summons these goat guys in his range, and when an enemy gets close, they explode on a short delay, dealing big arch damage and pulling anything that lives through that towards them. It's an alright skill, and if you build him and enjoy him, I recommend it as a thing to try out for fun. But otherwise, hold off on any masteries. It's not so much that it's a bad skill, it isn't, but rather that skill 3 is just so good that taking anything else outside of very specific scenarios is kinda throwing. Now, his skill 3, the big one. It increases his attack speed and limits him to only targeting elites and bosses, letting him store his charges quickly and focus on the biggest threats, while also increasing his attack and the attack multiplier from his first talent. This is what he's known for. When you see the one-shot memes, this is what he's using. But it's a lot more than that too. For one, it also has incredibly good uptime, lasting 30 seconds while only taking 20 to charge. And given that you can end the skill early, you can typically have the skill up for each elite that enters his range. And given that he has really good range, in like 90% of stages, that's just every elite. This is where the haters and the enjoyers start to separate. People have pointed out that he can't one-shot bosses on his own. This is correct. The haters have then concluded that he is bad, and this could not be further from the truth. Now, the problem Ebenholz faces isn't just for him alone. It's really a question of how much of a space single target damage has in a game where every stage comes down to eliminating all enemies. But not all enemies, or all damage for that matter, are created equal. While the goal of any stage is to defeat all the enemies, they're not all of equal strength or urgency, and any stage that gives you any kind of challenge will have you considering what the biggest threats are to your objective and how you're going to deal with them. Let's look at an example to see how Eben can factor in. H12-1 is a boss stage, and a boss where Eben does not match up well. Damasti's damage reduction, pushing you towards AoE or multi-target DPS, means Eben just can't keep up with other options as a boss killer. However, he can still put in a lot of work elsewhere. In fact, the biggest threat isn't even really Demosty, but rather dealing with everything else while blocking them and managing your unit's reduced defense from the constant corrosion. The big test comes from 3 different kinds of enemies. First, these guys, the Rebellion Agitators, which prevent you from blocking civilians and need to be taken out ASAP. Second, these guys, the Sarkaz Absurdist Tyrant Captains, which require more block than you're going to have, and if you somehow do have enough block, are going to do a big hit with splash damage that will take out any corroded blocker and any units around them. And then there's the Trilby Ashers, that'll also take out any blocker, this time while jumping behind them and straight into the blue box. So, how are you going to manage all of that while also managing Demosty and any civilians? Are you going to go heavy on blockers, rotating them out as their defenses get too low? Or are you going to cycle the same DPS as you're using for the boss and just hope the skill cycles work out? Or are you going to deploy Eben and have him simply delete them all so that you don't have to worry about them? Between his high damage, quick skill cycle, and wide range, he can deal with everything on the right 2 lanes, turning it from what would be a challenging stage into just a matter of cleaning up trash mobs and taking literally all the time you need to knock out the boss. And the thing is, H12-1 is an uncommonly bad example for Eben. This is him underperforming. Most stages don't have 3 lanes that are this spread out, and most bosses aren't this bad of a matchup. In 99% of stages, he can cover every lane, while also dealing with a boss at the same time if he has to. And that's the thing. No, he's not Wienar or Wishidel, but those aren't even the right units to compare to him. He's not going to delete everything on the map on a long cooldown, but he is going to delete the biggest threats, the guys you least want to deal with, on a short cooldown. If anything, a far more accurate comparison would be Texalt or Yato. That sounds insane, I know, but think about how you use them. A delete button for the enemies that you don't want to deal with. It's the exact same with him, and honestly, it's a reasonably favorable comparison for him too. No, you can't just drop him anywhere on the map. Enemies have to come to him, and his skill downtime is slightly longer than their redeploy time at 20 seconds versus their 16 to 18 second redeploy, depending on what potential you have. And again, yeah, he's pretty much only single target. But because you set him down in advance, he's less likely to get blown up by the threat he's trying to hit, his range lets him cover multiple lanes simultaneously, and his front-loaded damage means that you can end his skill more quickly and have him start recharging sooner for the next enemy. Plus, his skill lasting for a whole 30 seconds often means that you can just leave it up to be ready for the next one. And on top of that, he's specifically doing elemental damage, which translates incredibly well to high-end content, being a regular pick in high-end integrated strategies and contingency contract, lately being a more common pick in the latter than either of the broken fast redeploys. He's also similarly easy to pick up. His range is wide enough that you can just have him cover every lane. His skill downtime is short enough that if you make a mistake on his activation timings, you never really get called out for it. Plus, with his Delta mod, his damage is high enough that you often don't even need to worry about saving charges in the first place. Much like getting a strong fast redeploy, he fundamentally changes how you approach stages. No, he can't clear every enemy on his own, but when you don't have to worry about any of the biggest threats, clearing everything else is so much easier. So don't think of him so much as a boss killer that can't one-shot bosses, but rather a tool that you can use to simplify any stage. Yes, especially now with his Delta mod increasing his damage, sometimes that is by taking out a boss, but it doesn't have to be either. Just as often as by eliminating any and all elites from the picture, and when most stages don't even have a boss, and those that do still have elites to contend with, that's not such a bad thing. Hey, thanks for watching. This is my first time making a video like this, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, consider dropping a sub. I've started streaming, and I plan on making more of these guides too, especially for more underappreciated, overlooked ops. There are a lot of guides out there hyping up new meta ops as they come out, but I want to try to do a bit more to highlight the units that other people miss or pass over, especially since, this is a gacha game. You can pull for a flashy new meta unit and still end up with an Ebenholz. Next up should be Viviana once the Ars Fighter mods drop early next month, but let me know what other underappreciated ops deserve a look. Until then, auf Wiedersehen.